It started with a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. A low murmur through the crack in his office door. "Don't worry, baby. It's all taken care of. The will's been changed." A pause. Then laughter. His laugh. At first, I thought I had misheard him. Maybe he was talking about a business deal, some client, some legal matter. But when I opened the door, his face said everything. Guilt, shock, and a glimmer of something worse. Relief. He hadn't expected to be caught. He had stopped caring if he was. We'd been married for 17 years. I stood by him through the lean years, when he was just a junior attorney trying to prove himself, when we were scraping by with a newborn and a mortgage that suffocated us. I took care of the home, the bills, the meals. I turned a blind eye to the long nights at the office. I defended his absences to our friends, our daughter. I believed in us. But in that moment, as he slammed the laptop shut and gave me that fake, dismissive smile, I knew. I knew that this man, the one who had once promised me forever, had replaced me with someone else. And worse, he was already planning a future without me in it. "Who were you talking to?" I asked, my voice calm, almost detached. "No one. Work call." He wouldn't even meet my eyes. And I was supposed to believe that? The words echoed in my mind. The will's been changed. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't nothing. That was betrayal at the cellular level. I walked out of the room, heart pounding, brain buzzing with every possible explanation. But deep down, I already knew. I knew what kind of man he had become. And I knew what I had to do. That night, I waited until he fell asleep. I lay next to him in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the shallow rise and fall of his breath. For 17 years, I had trusted that breath. I had built my world around it. But now, every exhale felt like a lie. I tiptoed downstairs and opened my laptop. I started digging. Emails, credit card statements, private folders with names like Legal Backups and Insurance 2024. The deeper I went, the more the truth bled out. Hotel receipts in cities he'd claimed to be working in, jewelry purchases from stores I'd never stepped into, a series of wire transfers to an account I didn't recognize. And then, there it was, a scanned PDF, his updated will. To my beloved partner, Elise Thomas. Elise. Not me. My name was still there, technically. He had left me the lake house, but conveniently forgotten to mention that he had secretly put it up for sale 6 weeks ago. Everything else, our investments, his pension, our shared business holdings, was being funneled into a trust for her, Elise, a woman I'd never met, but already hated with a heat I didn't know I could feel. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too stunned, too frozen in disbelief. He was cutting me out, erasing me from the life we built together. And he thought I wouldn't notice. But the thing about betrayal is that it doesn't kill you. Not right away. It bleeds you slowly, and with every drop, something colder takes its place. By morning, I had a plan. He had changed the will for his mistress. So I changed our bank accounts. And that was just the beginning. The next few days were a masterclass in deception, his and mine. He walked around our home like nothing had changed, kissing me goodbye on his way to work, texting me updates like a dutiful husband, even complaining about his assistant forgetting to book his flights. The audacity made my skin crawl, but I didn't flinch. I didn't confront him. Not yet, because now I was playing the game too. While he was out working late, I was building a picture, one lie at a time. It turns out when you've shared a life for 17 years, you learn where the digital bodies are buried, and I knew exactly where to look. In our joint account, thousands had vanished in consulting fees and vague business expenses. I pulled up archived credit card statements, flagged suspicious transactions, and noted the timing of each purchase. Designer shoes and spa treatments billed during his supposed conference weekends. A new iPhone on a payment plan under the name Elise Thomas. A matching Apple Watch. Dinner for two at high-end restaurants 3 towns over. Even a weekend stay at a luxury resort, while he'd told me he was at a legal symposium in Denver. Every click brought a new wave of nausea. But also something else. Clarity. Rage, yes, but also resolve. His betrayal wasn't just personal. It was methodical, strategic. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was trying to erase me, financially and emotionally. And then came the biggest blow. I found a second bank account, one he hadn't told me about, hidden under a shell LLC with a boring name, TriPoint Solutions. It looked like a business expense funnel, but the only consistent deposit into the account? Money wired in from our shared retirement fund. My fund, too. Tens of thousands over the last year alone. That's when it hit me. He wasn't planning to leave me. He was planning to bankrupt me. Our prenup, signed when we were both young and starry-eyed, had loopholes. He knew them well, being a lawyer himself. The clause around non-marital business income meant he could squirrel away earnings under a company name and claim it wasn't shared property. It was buried in legalese, but clear as day if you knew what to look for. And of course he did. He had written half the damn contract. I'd trusted him with everything. My heart, my child's future, our family finances. I gave up my own career to raise our daughter and support his ambitions. He promised I'd never have to worry. We're a team, he always said. But he'd gone from teammate to traitor. And the worst part? He thought I wouldn't fight back. That I was too soft, too loyal, too naive. But betrayal does something to a person. It wakes up parts of you that you didn't know existed. It sharpens your instincts, hardens your will. I started meeting with a lawyer, one he didn't know. A woman named Carla, recommended by a friend who had gone through a nasty divorce herself. Carla didn't sugarcoat anything. She looked at the will, the financial statements, and our prenup, and her jaw tightened. He's not just preparing to leave you, she said. He's preparing to destroy you financially. I nodded. I already knew. But hearing it out loud still cut deeper than I expected. Carla leaned in. But here's the thing. He's sloppy, arrogant, and if we play this right, he's going to regret underestimating you. For the first time since that day, I heard him whisper her name. I felt something flicker inside me. Hope. Power. He thought I was weak because I hadn't screamed. Because I hadn't left. But he didn't understand that silence can be the sharpest weapon. I wasn't frozen. I was watching. I wasn't breaking. I was preparing. He had changed his will for his mistress. I had changed our bank accounts. And now I was coming for everything he thought he'd stolen. It wasn't just about me anymore. Not really. At first, I thought the pain came from the betrayal alone. 17 years of my life, discarded like yesterday's leftovers. But as the days passed and the layers of deception unraveled, I realized the real cost wasn't just emotional. It was generational. Our daughter, Ava, was 16, bright, curious, fiercely independent, but still so young. She was already stressing about college applications, SATs, scholarships. And here her father was, shifting all our assets into trusts and shell accounts for a woman who had never even stepped foot in our home. He wasn't just rewriting our marriage, he was rewriting our daughter's future. I couldn't sleep some nights, lying awake and staring at the ceiling while Ava snored softly down the hall. What if I hadn't overheard that call? What if he had pulled it off, left me, drained our accounts, left me scrambling for scraps while he played house with Elise? Ava would have been caught in the wreckage, we both would have. That's when the fear began to turn into fury. I remembered how hard we worked to get to where we were. We didn't come from money. He was the son of a carpenter. I was raised by a single mom who cleaned houses. We built everything from scratch, the house, the business, the life. I had been the one behind the scenes, managing the budgets, raising our daughter, handling every domestic detail so he could focus on his practice. He wouldn't have made it without me. And now he wanted to toss me aside for someone a decade younger who probably thought Mutual Fund was a music festival. It wasn't just insulting, it was dangerous. Because men like him, they don't just leave, they erase, and they justify it in their minds by convincing themselves that you were never really a partner, just a placeholder until something better came along. I knew what came next if I stayed silent. I'd be painted as bitter, controlling. He'd say I was unstable or hysterical when I questioned the missing money. I'd end up in a mediator's office being told to compromise, while he handed his mistress the life I helped him build. And Ava would be caught in the middle. She'd watch her mother be dismantled piece by piece while her father played the charming victim. I couldn't let her see that. I wouldn't. She deserved to know that her mother wasn't weak. That betrayal isn't something you swallow and forget. That some lines, once crossed, demand a reckoning. So I started planning everything not just for me, but for Ava too. I began documenting everything: receipts, emails, call logs, even screen recordings of shared financial accounts with transaction histories. I learned quickly that in court, emotion means nothing. Proof is everything, and I was going to have it all. Carla helped me draw up contingency plans, emergency savings accounts in my name only, new custodial plans if things escalated. We even began preparing for the possibility of a forensic accountant, someone to untangle the web of deceit my husband had been weaving under the guise of business. I stopped feeling scared and started feeling dangerous, because now I had a cause, a reason to fight beyond my pride. I wasn't just trying to salvage my dignity, I was trying to protect our daughter's future. I was done playing the role of the loyal, naive wife. I had tried that. I had believed in it. And look where that got me. No more. He wanted a clean break, a shiny new start with Elise. But before he rode off into the sunset, he was going to answer for what he did. He changed his will to cut me out of the life we built. But I was going to make damn sure he paid. Every cent, every lie, every betrayal. For me. For Ava. For every woman who's ever been told to just move on and take the high road. Not this time. There's a moment in every woman's life where the switch flips. No more second guessing. No more forgiving what shouldn't be forgiven. No more waiting for apologies that will never come. That moment came for me on a Wednesday morning. I had just dropped Ava off at school when I got a text from my husband. Going to be in meetings late. Don't wait up. 10 words. 10 smug, empty words. I sat in my car and stared at the message, heart hammering in my chest. But not from sadness this time. No, this time it was purpose. He wasn't just lying. He was practically daring me to find out. As if I was too broken, too docile to fight back. So I did what any woman scorned and underestimated would do. I planned. Not some vengeful meltdown or public humiliation. I wanted something better, consequences. I wanted to dismantle his entire exit strategy before he even realized I was onto him. The first step was simple: information. I knew from my late-night dives into his financial files that his little TriPoint Solutions business account was where most of the hidden money was moving. The name was listed on one of our shared bank's quarterly investment summaries, just a footnote. But it gave me a direction. I called in a favor from a former coworker of his, someone I knew still had access to public records and business registration documents. A few quick texts, and 2 days later I had it all. His LLC registration, the business address, which turned out to be a P.O. box, and the EIN number. Amateur hour. He had done the bare minimum to make it legal, which made it easier to prove how it was being used to siphon funds. Next, I tackled our accounts. I visited our main bank quietly and without drawing attention. I sat down with a private banker and calmly explained that I needed to create a new personal account. Not a joint one. Not one linked to any of our family holdings. Completely independent. I moved a portion of our liquid savings there, just enough to sustain me and Ava if things went nuclear, but not enough to trigger a red flag on his end. Then I did something bold. I started removing my name from his liability. No more joint credit cards. No more shared business expenses that he could manipulate. I even canceled the household Amex and opened one in my name only. The look on the customer service rep's face when I explained I was separating finances for estate planning reasons was almost satisfying. I wasn't just separating accounts, I was drawing a line. A silent, invisible wall he wouldn't see until it was too late. While I handled the logistics, Carla, my lawyer, was assembling the legal arsenal. She had started drafting a motion for asset protection in case he tried to move money around, once I confronted him. She told me we'd need witnesses, dates, timelines, and digital proof. Fortunately, I had all of it. Emails he forgot to delete. Calendar invites to lunch meetings that matched dinner reservations for two. Text message previews from Elise that popped up on his iPad before he finally had the sense to log out. The pièce de résistance? A backup of his cloud drive. I had auto-synced to our home computer years ago. He must have forgotten. There, in all its glory, was a scanned document labeled Revised Will Final PDF. It detailed everything: how he planned to give Elise his business shares, a beachfront property in escrow, and full access to their new joint trust account. He hadn't just betrayed me. He was actively rewriting our future as if I was already dead. But now, I had the blueprint, and I wasn't going to confront him in anger. That's what he expected. He thought he could talk me down, guilt me into submission, spin some story about, we grew apart, or this just happened. No. This wasn't going to be a screaming match in our kitchen. This was going to be a strategic, calculated takedown. He changed his will without blinking. Now it was time I showed him just how cold I could be. There's something strangely empowering about preparing for war in silence. While he laughed over wine with Elise and whispered promises into her ear, I was organizing files, logging transactions, recording timestamps. Every kiss he gave her was another nail in his own coffin, and he didn't even know it. The first real move I made was subtle, surgical, almost. I began routing all-important mail to a private P.O. box, not the one linked to our shared address. A new one he didn't even know existed. The lawyer, the accountant, the forensic investigator, all correspondence flowed through that quiet little box in a strip mall 2 towns over. It was my command center, small and discreet. Carla's contact, a forensic accountant named Marcy, started analyzing the flow of funds in and out of our shared and business accounts. She worked fast, following money trails like a bloodhound. Within days, she uncovered tens of thousands of dollars routed through TriPoint and rebranded as consulting expenses. From there, the money landed in a joint account between my husband and Elise. It was all the proof we needed. Fraud, breach of marital fiduciary duty. Marcy even flagged questionable tax filings from the past 2 years that could lead to legal scrutiny if exposed. That alone gave me leverage. The second step was personal, preparing Ava. I didn't tell her everything. She was still a teenager and didn't need to be crushed by the full weight of her father's duplicity. But I sat her down one evening and said, "Things are changing, sweetheart, but I promise no matter what happens, I will always protect you. You'll be okay." She looked up at me and asked, "Is it about Dad?" My breath caught. I nodded slowly. "Yes, but I've got it handled." She didn't ask anything else, just reached out and held my hand. That was enough. Once I had my emotional armor secured, I made one more critical move. I contacted the trustee managing his so-called updated will, the one naming Elise as the main beneficiary of assets I helped build. I didn't confront or accuse. I asked polite, careful questions. As the legal spouse, I'd like clarification regarding joint assets, pending estate transfers, and any recent changes that might affect my daughter and me. The silence on the other end was telling. And a day later, I received an email from the trustee's assistant. "We were unaware of any marital discord or pending legal separation. Thank you for the documentation. We'll be pausing all updates until further legal clarity is established." Check. My next visit was to the HR department of his law firm, anonymously through a whistleblower email Carla helped me draft. We included documentation of misuse of company resources, fraudulent billing, and inappropriate use of a company card tied to client entertainment that was actually used to wine and dine Elise. A week later, I got confirmation they'd opened an internal investigation. Double check. And finally, I sent a formal letter through Carla to his office, delivered by courier, to inform him of my intention to file for divorce and request a full audit of all marital assets. That was the moment the mask came off. He stormed into the house that night, red-faced, loud, sputtering accusations. "You went through my files?" "I built those files," I snapped. "You just filled them with lies." He threw out every excuse in the book. "It's not what you think. We were drifting apart. I didn't mean to hurt you." But when I listed the exact dates and dollar amounts of every betrayal, his voice cracked. "You were never supposed to find out like this," he finally said, slumping against the wall. "No," I replied coldly. "I was never supposed to find out at all. You were going to gut me and walk away smiling." He looked at me with something that resembled fear for the first time. Not because I was yelling. I wasn't. I was calm. Too calm. Because I had all the power now, because he knew what was coming. The job, the trust, the mistress, the money. It was all hanging by a thread now, and I was holding the scissors. There's a certain satisfaction that only justice can bring. Not revenge, not anger. Justice. 3 weeks after I served him the divorce papers, we stood across from each other in a conference room at Carla's office. No courtroom theatrics, no screaming, just lawyers, legal pads, and the stifling silence of everything unsaid. He looked older already. Tired. Not the smug, untouchable man who once whispered to another woman about his revised will. Elise wasn't there. Of course not. She was probably hiding out, waiting for the dust to settle, waiting for her prize. Instead, he sat beside his lawyer, flipping through the stack of documents Carla had prepared. Bank statements, LLC transaction logs, receipts, photos, proof. He tried to argue that the Tri-Point funds were outside the marriage, that Elise had invested in his company, but Marcy's forensic report had torn that defense to pieces. The money had come directly from our shared retirement accounts. Every penny was traceable. Carla slid the final piece across the table, the formal petition to freeze all discretionary spending from the Tri-Point account, along with a motion to hold him liable for breach of fiduciary duty in the marriage. His lawyer paled. Mine didn't flinch. And then, as if the universe were waiting for perfect timing, his phone buzzed on the table. A single message lit up the screen. From Elise. So what's left for me? He fumbled to flip the phone over, but I had already seen it. Carla gave me a look, silent approval in her eyes. And in that moment, I saw everything clearly. This wasn't just a man who made a mistake. This was someone who thought he could orchestrate a secret life and get away clean. He never planned for a woman who'd fight back. By the end of the ATA meeting, the new terms were clear. Half of everything, business assets, real estate, investments, was to be transferred into a trust for Ava and me. The court would oversee the division of remaining assets, and any attempt to conceal or relocate funds would trigger a full audit and potential criminal investigation. Oh, and the will? That shiny new document Elise was so proud of? Nullified. Under marital fraud and pending litigation, no trust payouts, no beachfront property, no happily ever after. I left that room lighter than I'd felt in years. I didn't smile, I didn't gloat, I just walked. Because I had already won. Ava and I moved out a month later. We found a modest but beautiful house near the lake. Nothing flashy, nothing over the top, but it was ours. Paid for with the emergency funds I'd moved before he could touch them, and later secured with my share of the settlement. I went back to school part-time, something I'd always wanted but shelved while building his dream. Now I had the time, the space, the fire to do it for me. As for Ava, she saw everything, how I stood my ground, how I didn't break. And one day when she was applying for scholarships, she said, "Mom, I want to be like you." Not perfect, but fearless. He, on the other hand, was left to deal with the fallout. Elise, as it turned out, didn't stick around long once the money dried up. Last I heard, he was trying to mend what little was left of his law firm's reputation. He changed his will for his mistress, without guilt, without warning, without hesitation. So I changed everything else. My bank accounts, my lawyer, my story. And in the end, it wasn't just about making him pay. It was about reclaiming my name, my worth, and my power. People like him always think they're in control, until the one they thought was helpless learns how to fight. And trust. Me. There's nothing more dangerous than a woman with nothing left to lose, and a plan she's already begun.